So good afternoon. I want to welcome everyone to the Mid-Illinois Communication Association's webinar on storytelling for impact. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Brandy Renfro, and I'm the president of MICA, as well as the director of communications for the Office of the Illinois Senate President. So start off today, type in the chat who you are, where you work, network throughout the whole program. That's fine. We encourage interaction. We want to make this fun for everybody. And if you're curious about what future programs we have planned, be sure to follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn. I'll put links to our pages in the chat here in a little bit, so you guys can click on those and give us a follow. And if you haven't done so already, you want to make sure to become a member, because right now we have a reduced price and it won't stay this low forever. Currently, professionals and retired communicators can join for $40 and students can join for just $20. So we're really trying to build up that membership. So we would love to have you sign up. You get exclusive access to some of our programs and discounts on things. So please sign up for this limited time offer by going to our website. So now I'd like to take a minute to thank our board members, Christy Mercado Groves, Michelle Eccles, and Shelley Tulo, for setting up great programs for us. So I really appreciate all the work that you do. I know sometimes it's not easy. So thank you. A little hat tip to all the work you do behind the scenes for us. Appreciate you. Next, I'm pleased to introduce today's speaker. So Matt McKinney is a Los Angeles-based communications specialist, award-winning former journalist, and proud sixth-generation Central Illinoisan. He was a member of a 2019 Pulitzer Prize-winning team supporting communication efforts surrounding LA's first Super Bowl in 3 decades, and currently serves as an employee communication strategist for the lead developer of the James Webb Space Telescope. A Springfield High School graduate, McKinney holds a bachelor's degree from Knox College and a master's in journalism for Northwestern University. So without further ado, let's hear from our speaker, Matt. Matt?
Brady, thank you so much. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. It's a huge thank you to MICA for inviting me. Really excited to have the chance to talk shop with fellow communicators from my hometown, and wish I could be there in person. So thank you again for the opportunity. I want to spend some time today talking about storytelling and how we can all work to break through noise with stories that have some substance. So let's dive in. Before we get started, a bit about me. I grew up in Springfield, proud Springfield High graduate. Both my parents are journalists and spent a lot of time as a kid in both their newsrooms, and it really kind of sparked my interest in people and storytelling and the world around me. And started my career as a newspaper reporter myself, first in Baton Rouge, and then working my way up to the Virginian Pilot in Virginia Beach, and then my last stop at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, where my colleagues and I were part of the Pulitzer Prize team for coverage of the Tree of Life synagogue shooting. About 4 years ago, I moved to Los Angeles with my girlfriend, who's from out here, and joined a small PR firm with some very cool clients. The host committee for the Super Bowl, FIFA World Cup, and other big events in Los Angeles. Currently, I'm the executive editor for the Employee magazine at Northrop Grumman, which built the James Webb Space Telescope. All that to say that throughout my career, I've learned that storytelling can be a really powerful tool to create connections and to drive impact. So here's kind of a quick overview of what I want to cover today. Kind of overview on why storytelling matters, kind of the structural side of what I think good stories share. Look at a few case studies from my time in journalism, PR, corporate comms, how to amplify the stories once you have them, key takeaways, and then I want to hear from you guys on kind of what some of your best storytelling tips are. So let's get started. So I think at the highest level, I think stories have a way of connecting us, convey complex ideas in a relatable way. They can inspire action. So whether you're talking to clients or to voters or subscribers, I think stories are what make your messages memorable and impactful. So I think first storytelling engages your audience. One of my favorite newspaper reporters used to say, it doesn't matter how important it is, if we're not making it interesting, it's not going to have an impact. Second, I think it creates an emotional connection, and that makes the message more relatable and memorable. I think the characters that you can root for and have some stake in where they're headed. I think third, storytelling drives action. When people connect with a story, they're more likely to be motivated to take action, whether that's supporting a cause or buying a product or changing a behavior or even just caring in a way that they hadn't before. And then finally, I think that storytelling builds brand identity, and that's just as true for news organizations as it is for folks on the other side. I think narrative is what differentiates your brand in the end. So in terms of key principles, I think first and foremost, authenticity kind of makes your audience more likely to connect with and believe in what you're saying. I think you got to be straightforward and accessible so that folks can kind of grasp what you're saying and remember it. I think the emotional side, of course, is important too. It's what kind of makes your story, again, memorable and impactful. People remember how you made them feel. Is your story relevant? I think you got to understand who you're talking to and what matters most to them. And then I think a clear call to action, and that's again whether supporting a cause or adopting a new behavior or buying your product. I think stories ideally should guide folks to some actionable outcome. Again, even if that's just thinking about the issue that you're raising in kind of a new way. So in terms of structure, I think most stories more or less have kind of the same structure. You got your hook, your conflict, a turning point, and a conclusion. I think that the hook could be, is it a surprising fact, kind of a vivid description, but it's something that you don't forget and something that kind of gives you a reason to keep following. Conflict. I think most stories need to have that. The stakes of some sort, building tension and keeping the audience invested. Turning point, where the story reaches its peak and has a twist, usually some sort of resolution, and then finally a conclusion or a kicker to wrap things up and kind of leave you with an idea or a question to kind of chew on. So I think now let's look at some examples of kind of different case studies throughout kind of my time in journalism and comms. This is a story I did at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette that finished in the best public service category in one of the Pennsylvania statewide journalism competitions. This was about a month after the Parkland High School shooting in 2018, and I was started spending time in a school district, about 3,500 students, pretty small school district just outside of Pittsburgh, but was a place where a number of students had been killed by gun violence in recent years. And it just felt like so often those stories were getting covered as one-off kind of crime briefs. So I wanted to really dive in and shed some light on what it was like inside this tiny school district where gun violence was a constant, where school employees played this really challenging emotional support role when as many as 5 students were killed in a single school year, some years. From an audience standpoint, I was thinking about residents in the greater Pittsburgh area. I was thinking about policymakers. I was thinking about just anyone who could benefit from kind of understanding better more about the people who kept these schools and the communities going kind of in their darkest moments, and then to try to do it in a way that was sensitive and empathetic and responsible, but also without kind of sugarcoating the truth. So I opened with a haunting image, and it was a kindergarten classroom where teachers had rearranged desks to hide that a 7-year-old who had been killed wasn't coming back. The conflict was the kind of day-to-day grief and trauma and the fear of kind of being in that kind of environment with no easy answers. The turning point, and this was very much in line with a lot of the student activism we saw following the Parkland shooting, but the formation of a student group advocating against gun violence, and then finally the mother of one of the students who had been killed joining those meetings to kind of support them and advise as they went to Harrisburg to talk to state lawmakers. But as intense and heavy as that story was, I think a lot of the kind of same principles apply even for stories with more kind of a happier ending or more optimism and excitement. And so in 2022, the Super Bowl was coming back to LA for the first time in almost 30 years. And so there was a ton of buzz and excitement, but also a lot of uncertainty given where we were at with the pandemic at that point. And so in the year or so leading up to the event, our client, the Super Bowl host committee, wanted to highlight local small businesses that were, positioned to benefit from things like the Super Bowl coming to town. So a kind of natural fit was Guelaguetza, which is a really popular Oaxacan restaurant in the Koreatown neighborhood of Los Angeles. It's a restaurant that is a popular spot for big events. So we did a video highlighting the co-owner Bricia Lopez, who kind of opens up by describing how her restaurant has really been an anchor in the community since the early 90s. The conflict was the impact that the pandemic had, not just on her business, but the entire restaurant industry. Guelaguetza had to let go, I think it's something like half of its employees just to stay afloat. And so kind of a lot of uncertainty. The turning point, as Bricia told it, was that 200,000 some visitors would be coming to LA for the Super Bowl, and presumably some of those folks would be coming to her restaurant. And so finally, the sense that LA's small businesses were in a position to kind of bounce back in a way that they had before the pandemic. And finally, a piece here for the Northrop Grumman Play Mag and other channels as well. But this was a piece that we did just a few months after the White House launched a program to take on the space industry's labor shortage. It was a piece that highlighted how that sort of on-the-job training has sort of already happening at a company like Northrop Grumman. And so we told the story of Melvin Aguirre, who was a dog groomer at a crossroads. He wanted a new challenge, so he quit his job to start an apprenticeship where he trained to become a skilled machinist. And so with that, the conflict was the day-to-day challenges of learning a new skill, technical skill that he didn't have any experience in. And the turning point was finally, him having the experience that kind of put him in a position to make a piece that ended up on the Webb telescope and is a million miles away right now and helping the telescope work. Finally, the conclusion in that story is him mentoring new apprentices, just like he was trying to find the right fit. And so I think, in terms of once you have a story with legs, I think, you obviously want to amplify it the best you can. And I know folks on this call know all this, well, but just want to run through it quickly. Social media, great for kind of quick updates, engaging updates, and to kind of interact with audiences in real time. Earned media, TV, radio, newspapers, et cetera. Sort of builds credibility, builds trust, enhances the story's reach. Some of your own channels are kind of a great way, your own blogs or websites, podcasts, are spots where you control the content. You can do more in-depth storytelling in your own voice. Can use SEO and metrics to kind of tighten your approach, what's working, what's not. And then finally, the paid media, whether you're doing targeted ads on Google or social media, you can sort of extend your reach and really target specific audiences with your story. And so finally, just a few takeaways. First and foremost, I think know your audience, doing the research and listening to what they're saying or what they're not saying, using data and visuals, kind of keep folks engaged. They show you they show that you know what you're talking about, which I think is important. It goes back to the credibility side of things. Keep it simple. You got to decide kind of what the point of your story is, and make sure all the elements, all the kind of scaffolding around it reinforces that message. And so in journalism, it's a nut graph, or if it's a quote in a press release, is it in service of the point that you're trying to make? Consistency across platforms. I think content should more or less kind of convey the same core message and values, no matter the channel. And then finally measuring and adapting. I think that's one of the ways you can tell if you're breaking through what's working, what isn't, and being willing to adapt your approach to make stories as effective as possible. Again, thank you for the time today. I'm happy to answer questions, but I think I'd love to kind of hear from the folks on the call today, kind of what your approaches to storytelling are, what your favorite kind of tricks of the trade are, or just stories that made an impact on you.
Matt, you've been involved in several different aspects of journalism, of communication, with including internal and all of that. What do you think is the most difficult audience to reach in all of those aspects?
I think it's the skeptical audience in a lot of ways. I mean, I think about in newspapers. I mean, how many sort of conversations you'd have with readers who thought you were biased or thought you were sort of too negative or that sort of thing. And I think trying to communicate what your kind of what your intentions are and what your purpose is and kind of how you go about it and being transparent about it. So I think generally speaking, it's the skeptical audience I think is the toughest one to kind of break through.
What variables might cause you to change your storytelling approach? Is there anything that would happen that would make you want to change course, and how do you kind of handle that?
Yeah, I mean, I think if a couple of things. I think if the environment that you're telling the story in has changed dramatically, I mean, that would certainly kind of change the approach. If I'm trying to think of an example that's recent. But if for some reason there wasn't a labor shortage in the aerospace industry, then it might not be as important to kind of highlight the work that is happening. If that were to change kind of suddenly. I think also if the stakeholders, I think if folks that you're working with suddenly have a something in their world that has kind of caused a change in heart about how they feel about what you're doing or what they're looking to accomplish with the story. I think that is something to kind of consider as well.
Hey, Matt, it's John Patterson. How are you?
John, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. How do you convince clients that this is the best way to do things? Clients who might have their own ideas of how, they're wrong ideas of how to do this.
Yeah, I think that is where you know, I think it depends on the client. It depends on it depends on lots of factors. But I think that that's where kind of the measurable impact comes in. That if you can show kind of a track record of results and case studies that where this approach worked, I think in the end the proof is kind of in the pudding. For folks. And I think also trying to get a handle on where that skepticism is coming from. But I think as much as things can change in the world, I think a good story is kind of a timeless thing.
Hi, Matt. Do you have any tips or resources for, how to coach your team to adopt some of these principles in their own writing and to kind of have them thinking about these things when they're putting together their own?
You know, I mean, that's a great question. I don't have any kind of right off the top of my head, but I know, I mean, Pointer it was always has always been a North Star for me. I think you know, some of just the old kind of basic writing books, the you know, the elements of style, things like that. Have always kind of been North Stars for me in terms of storytelling, in terms of I know that Pointer oftentimes will put together like their favorite leads of the year, and that's kind of a jumping off point for other resources like that. But that's always been somewhere I've kind of looked up to.
Matt, this is Tony. I'm really curious as a storyteller. I think sometimes you set out to tell a certain story, but then as you're experiencing it, things like kind of start to change. Like you realize that your original story maybe wasn't what the final story was. Can you talk a little bit about if you've ever experienced moments like that, or even the importance of agility in storytelling?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question, and I think that I think that it's kind of a matter of getting a handle on what's changing, how it fits into kind of the big picture kind of you know, hypothesis you had going into it, the key takeaways, and is it something you know, is it something I think that's where like context comes in. Is it something that you can kind of zoom out and put a you know, if it's written, is it a graph kind of explaining the context of what's changed and how your kind of original kind of basis for the story has or hasn't changed. But yeah, I mean, I think sometimes like if something changes too much, I mean, sometimes you, I guess, cut your losses and go a different direction.
It looks like we have a question in the chat. Adriana Colindres is wondering, following up on what John said, how do you determine easier success or impact?
Yeah, you know, my last stop in journalism at the Post-Gazette, I was working in Harrisburg, and we would put together, you know, with every story, sort of, it was a Google Smart Sheet, more or less, measuring, quantifying impact. And so there were different ways to think about it, but something that big impact can come in kind of all shapes and sizes. And so with something like that, it's I think about on the news side, you know, at the highest level, did a policy change, did a rule change? Did someone resign in response to your coverage? Did something get better? Did something that was broken move toward getting fixed? But then, like something as small as you know, getting invited onto a radio show, a public affairs show, is an impact in its own way, because it's an opportunity to kind of promote your story and help more people kind of become aware of it. I think on the kind of PR comm side, I mean, I don't know how many people on this call use like Cision or yes, Cision or other tools like it, where there's you know, on earned media kind of a quantifiable look at, you know, if you were able to place a story, what was kind of what was that TV time worth, according to sort of an estimate by a service like that. I mean, those are all things that I think you can go back to clients with, and then on the internal comms side, I think it's there are all sorts of KPIs, click rates and read rates and engagement rates and things like that you can I think are kind of North Stars in terms of what's breaking through and what's not.
Other questions? Matt, what's been your favorite story that you've told?
Oh man, my favorite story that I've told. Let's see. There was one. There was one at the what? Yeah, there was one in Baton Rouge. It was about a month after it started, and I was fresh out of I just graduated school, and there was a civil rights leader named Johnny Jones, who was a lawyer who helped organize the Baton Rouge bus boycotts that MLK used as a sort of a model to host kind of the similar boycotts in Alabama, and getting to spend time with someone like that who was close to 100 years old, and kind of two guys from different corners of the century, being able to kind of hear that story firsthand was pretty powerful. I don't know that is necessarily the one that a profile of kind of a lesser known civil rights leader that's one I'll remember kind of for a long time.
Christy has a question in the chat. She wants to know if you have any tips for storytelling and connecting when your subjects are from afar. So many people work remotely to a wide audience. How do you get leads, connect with those you're interviewing, etc.?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think that is kind of where at least the way I think about it, an audience survey might be helpful. To kind of get a sense of where they're coming from and what they're thinking about and what their pain points are, what they care about, and then trying to tell stories that add some value there. But I also think at a company like Northrop Grumman that has 100,000 people, we use a lot of kind of smart sheets where it's and there were newsrooms that I worked in that had similar kind of formats that. You sort of structure not a survey so much, but a form, a pretty simple online form that invites kind of folks that kind of audience members to submit stories that they care about, and if you structure it the right way, you can kind of guide those ideas into buckets and hopefully have some material that's actionable and that you can use to serve some of those audiences.
All right, Matt, it's John. I'm more of a dinosaur like your dad. So explain smart sheets and for those of us who just like scribble things down on paper on a daily basis to track our progress, what are some of the best entry kind of platforms for, and how do you use them?
I think for me, and sort of not necessarily speaking like professionally, I mean, even like personally, I'm a big fan of kind of all things. Not to make a plug for Google here, but I am kind of a fan of yeah, I mean, like Google Sheets, basically the Excel function that you can that you can then kind of link up with other programs in that Google suite. Smart Sheets is another one that I mentioned. It's a form essentially that is pretty intuitive and pretty easy to set up. And once you have it, you could do it for something as simple as you're hosting a barbecue and want to know kind of who's bringing what, and you end up with kind of takeaways that you can act on. So, John, fantasy baseball is actually something I use that for too.
Well, I've seen how your team performs, so that doesn't suggest it's good.
Well, there's time left. There's time left.
Looks like we have another question in the chat from Christy. As many in our community are experiencing the Sonia Massey story, do you have any recommendations to approach that story in our workplaces? Through news reports, etc. How do we balance the emotion we may be feeling with being fair in our delivery of information?
Yeah, I mean it's a great point, and I think I can answer it kind of, I think, both from the journalism standpoint, from the communications standpoint. That on the journalism side, I think it's I think it's about telling the truth. It's telling telling that story with kind of empathy and kind of an eye toward kind of what were the things that broke down that led to something as awful as that happening. And then I think from the organizational side, it's kind of talking with your people, talking with your leadership about kind of what is on their mind with regards to that, and kind of coordinating to every organization is different, but I think kind of listening to what people in your community are saying, and being sensitive to it.
Okay, well, Matt, thank you so much for joining our group today. I've always admired those who possess the ability to tell impactful stories. I personally am not great at it, so thanks for sharing your expertise with us. Now, we do have a poll we'd like everyone to participate in. So if you guys could go ahead and do that, we would appreciate it. All right. And thanks all of you for joining us today. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook. I put that in the link earlier, as well as LinkedIn, to learn about future programs that we're hosting. And you can also sign up for our e-newsletter. And you go to www.midilcommunications.org. And you just click on the subscribe button at the bottom of the page under Get the Latest Updates. Or you can reach out to me or anyone else on the board if you'd like more details. So thanks again for being here today, and we hope to see you at our next event. Take care.